Welcome back to Roto Moto. My name is Donnie, and in this video, I will cover 5 riders I want you to look at when making your PulpMX fantasy picks for Ironman, tips for picking FFL, the weather report, race day schedule, and an early look at what my team could be come Saturday. But first, let's take a moment to recap what went down at Budds Creek last weekend. We lost nearly 10% of total players for Budds, down 700 total players from the previous week, which is the second largest drop of the season, closely following last week. One thing that was not down was the scoring. 644 is the highest perfect score available since week 1, and the popular team was a whopping 583, up 50% from last week's. The FFL was again very guessable, with 95 and 85% of people getting it right respectively, despite less than half of players taking the gambles. The median championship score hits the highest of the year at 436, meaning if you scored 437 or more, you did better than half of those who take the game seriously enough to pay for it. All-star selections continue to drop, just 2.28 per team, which is a record low in the entire pulp game. Double point riders hold steady and average right at 15 per class, despite the unusually high scores. There were a ton of low scores on the board, meaning a lot of disparity here, as tons of low scores accompany the unusually high number of 500 plus, led mostly by Garage Marchbank's big fat 0. Normally I would be content with a 435, but not this week, clocking in just 1 point below average, and all because I tinkered. 10 minutes until lockout, I had Ty Masterpool on my team, but with Marchbanks also a 5 handicap, I made the switch for the guy with better equipment, and I suffered greatly, losing out on those 90 points. Ben LeMay's second moto tanked my otherwise great 450 squad, and now I'm sitting just inside the top 300 on the season. The Roto Moto League sees another newbie in the weekly top, with D-Cave and Dish nailed both 100s and both FFLs, and only really lost out when Scherer DNFing the second moto, and Cooper just missing the podium in the second as well. A friendly and familiar face, B Smith 831, sits atop the Roto Moto League for the season with 4,098 points, the first and one of only 9 players to clock in over 4,000 in the league. The injury report is piling up. First, the riders coming back. TLD Gas has a single rider returning. Michael Mosman checks in with a 0 handicap, which has obvious potential. Previous high handicap hero Derek Kelly checks in after missing the last round with a concussion-like symptom from a crash at Unadilla. Styles Robertson is officially listed as to be determined, but I doubt we'll see him this weekend or maybe the rest of the season. Speaking of missing multiple rounds, Seth Hammaker heads back to the disabled list, missing his 7th round in 10 trips this season. Joining him on the sidelines is PulpMX Yamaha's Garrett Marchbanks, who has been battling multiple afflictions, and the team says he will miss at least 1 round, but hopes to make his return for the final 2. On the 450 side, we have 3 big additions to join TLD Gas's Justin Barsha, who will sit out his 3rd consecutive week with multiple injuries resulting from a practice crash. Fellow All-Star Christian Craig had a major get-up on the first moto of Budds Creek and will miss Ironman to make sure he is recouped and ready to go for the West Coast rounds. Rockstar Husqvarna finally succumbs to its wounds, and the 3rd and final rider on the 450 squad sits out a race. Dean Wilson, who has been battling Epstein-Barr all season, is going to take the time off to hopefully get his energy level stabilized. And finally, the biggest hit of them all is HEP Suzuki's Max Anstie, who will miss the round after testing positive with 19. This is not the first confirmed report of this in the pit this week, but the first major rider to confirm it. Hopefully it is not a widespread issue, and we at least get the last 3 rounds finished without a hitch. Be sure to confirm that a rider is on the cheat sheets before putting them on your team, and for an even easier time, you can check a little box when selecting your team that says only show riders in AMA qualifying results to, you guessed it, only show guys that have put down at least 1 lap time in qualifying. It will still show guys that could have crashed out in qualifying or had some other issue, but hey, it's better than nothing. All right, on to your picks for the 2021 Ironman National. I have 3 guys to target, 1 to avoid, and a high handicap guy for you gamblers out there. Starting with the little class and working our way up in the 250 All-Star spot, I'm looking at Pro Circuit Kawasaki's Joe Shimoda. The 3rd-year rider's 8 handicap is a huge value, especially considering how many riders in the middle of the pack that could challenge for the top 10 is thin this week. Shimoda has 2 DNFs this year, but if you pull those aside, he has finished in the top 9 in 13 of his last 14 motos, with an average finish 4 spots higher than his start. Joe has no qualms coming through the pack if needed, and that is the kind of grit you want out of your all-star in the event that they get buried early. The rider this week that I want you to be wary of picking is 250 non-all-star Ty Masterpool. Last week's 90-point darling has lost practically all of his value down to just 2 handicap. That means even if Ty matches his best finish of 8-9 last week, that would only bring home 58 points this week, not nearly enough upside to offset the risk of Ty finishing outside the top 12, something he's done over half the race weekends this season. On to the 450 class, your 450 All-Star spot should be targeting Cooper Webb. No doubt Cooper can't be satisfied with sitting 6th in the 450 championship, but he's been nothing short of consistent in recent weeks, finally earning an All-Star badge after a few weeks eligible for double points. Coop has finished in the top 7 in 2/3 of motos this season, his last 6 straight and 9 of his last 10, not to mention he has the best average start in the class, meaning he should be out front early of the trouble that usually ruins the high handicap guys' races. A double points eligible rider that I do want you to look at is the Chiz number 11. Kyle Chisholm came off the couch last week and put up a shocking 11-13 day for 11th overall. I don't think he's going to replicate those results again. That's probably a little unrealistic, but would be very, very impressive. But with Plessinger ailing, Craig Barsha, Anstey, and Wilson out, I think the money is going to be on the higher handicaps this weekend, and Chiz's experience and never quit style makes him one of the safest higher picks on the board. The Pirelli Tire high handicap hero of the round, given to a rider with a handicap of 10 or more that I think has a realistic chance to score massive points this weekend if you're the type of person that likes to sweat out 2 30-minute motos for a big payout. This week's choice is going to Midwest native Jace Kessler. In the 450 class, the new 800 surprised everyone by entering the 450 class immediately following Loretta Lynn Amateur Nationals and posting a 13:22 moto score. He followed that up with a DNF DNS after a hard crash in the first moto last weekend. You might be wary with just 2 good motos here, but also don't forget he raced 6 motos on the 250 class earlier this season, and Ironman was his lone national in 2020, where he finished 21-26 as a true privateer rookie. Kessler finished his final Open Pro moto at Loretta Lynn's on the podium, just behind Levi Kitchen, and with 4 big factory names out further up the field, it should be wide open for him to post another big score here. The FFL picture stays exactly the same. In the 250s, it's Justin Cooper or bust, as he has 11 in 18 tries, the only guy with more than 2, by the way. Don't get cute here, take the easy points, or play it safe and don't pick one at all. The 450 is still leading Ken's way. Roxon now has 7 in the class, and Cooper Webb secures his first after holding the best average start in the field practically all season. I don't think there's any reason to pick someone other than Roxon here, or just abstain altogether, although I think if you are looking for a contrarian pick, Sexton is probably the best counter pick if that's the sort of thing you want to do. The weather shouldn't be any concern this weekend. There is a realistic chance of thunderstorms early Friday afternoon, but they should be early, and the track team should have ample time Friday evening and Saturday morning to make sure the track is perfect for bikes on the surface. It will be a bit warm by the time motos begin, with a high in the low 90s. It's going to feel closer to 100 when you're out there on the track. So if you are trying to play the weather, I would plan accordingly by picking for endurance and fitness. The schedule is more of the same for 2021 with a lot of East Coast rounds. Qualifying begins at 10 a.m. and you can catch all of the action on the Peacock app. Patreon supporters will enjoy the enhanced cheat sheet immediately following each qualifying session, and the more simple public cheat sheets will be available on Twitter and Instagram around noon, about an hour before the gates drop. Before I show you my early team for Ironman, I just want to take a moment to talk about this video's sponsor. I'm excited to announce that Pirelli Tire is back with Roto Moto for another 2021 weekend. Pirelli remains dedicated to the grassroots part of the sport with their "We sell what we race what we sell" motto, providing you access to the very same Scorpion MX tire used by their professional race teams, including world champions such as Tim Geiser and Jeffrey Hurlings, as well as the Chaparral Honda team led by Cody Schock and his 82 fantasy points last weekend after securing his best weekend ever, going 7-11 for 9th overall. The approach has allowed Pirelli to place its research and development focus on motocross, benefiting the everyday rider when they take it to their local racetrack. My Thursday night team looks like this, and boy is it a risky one. Joe Shimoda is my 250 All-Star with an 8 handicap, 2-time 100-point scorer Derek Kelly at a 14 handicap returning from injury, 12 handicap Caden Amarine looking to continue his limited rookie season, and rounded out by privateer veteran Zach Williams, who spots a 15 handicap as my sneaky pick. On the 450 side, I have Cooper Webb in the All-Star spot at a 6 handicap, the Chiz gonna chiz at an 8, Ty Lube Honda's Grant Harlan returns to the series at a 12, and that new number 800 Jace Kessler with a monster 15 handicap. After sitting out the 450 FFL for a few rounds, I'm feeling the need to make up some points, so I will be adding Ken Roczen in the slot alongside Justin Cooper by taking both FFLs. Do not forget to follow at RotoMoto on Twitter and Instagram for qualifying insights, injury updates, stats, and banner as the race goes on, and of course, those ever important fantasy cheat sheets. And if you want even more help making your picks, be sure to check out and subscribe to Roto Moto on Patreon for access to the enhanced cheat sheets, chocked full of more data than you can imagine to help make those huge point picks. I want to give a shout out to the current Patreon supporters. This channel is made possible by good people like first-time subscriber Jack of Hearts, as well as longtime supporters Jesse M, Andre C, and Chad H. Thank you as always for watching Roto Moto. My name is Donnie. I will see you on race day.